Father Richard McNeillie, welcome to the program.
It's great to be here, Rudy. Thank you. It's, actually, I'm a big fan. I've been listening to your podcast, and this is great.
I'll be very honest with you. I had to make sure that I got a haircut and everything like that because I said, Father Richard McNeillie, he's a handsome guy. I gotta look good on the camera. I can't lose any more weight at this point. That I've lost weight recently, but I said, Father Richard McNeillie's a good-looking guy. I'm gonna be on the same screen as him.
You make me laugh, man. You make me laugh.
Now you are the Vocation Director here in the Archdiocese of Galveston-Houston. How many years have you been doing this?
It seems like it hasn't been that long, but it's been 4 years. I'm gonna complete 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
And who was the Vocation Director before you?
Father TJ Doltz.
And he was there for how many years?
Well, so this is going to be, this is going to sound bad. He was there for 4 years, but I'm not leaving. I just want to let people know that. Usually the term is 6, and the two before him stayed on 7 years. So there's 6 is about the average, and I like to say, I don't know if Father TJ would like this, but he got out for good behavior or whatever. But this is not prison. Being a vocation director.
Did he meet his quota?
Prison.
Is that what it was?
I don't know. Well, to be honest, I think it was because, so the parish I came from, he went to as pastor. And he had been there before. They loved him. And it was just the right fit. I think everybody knew that. And so when it came open, because the pastor I was with, Father Chesterborski, he retired. Father TJ was the obvious fit, and so they made it work out.
And it's all about timing too.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. He left in 4 good years, and he got to be the pastor of his dream parish and things like that.
So before him was Father Dat.
Yes. So I am following. I just had lunch with him, but I am in his wake. I am following the trail that Father Dat blazed in the vocation office.
Now, speaking of that trail, we've got ordinations coming up every year, and we've got another set of ordinations. Now, by the time this interview gets released, I believe it'll be done. But these guys, are they among the guys that you brought in, or are they still from Father TJ?
Yeah, this is the thing people don't realize about vocation directors is it's a long-term project. And so, no, these are actually... especially the priest, I really think of them as Father TJ's men.
Okay.
Not because, there's something about, especially that group, if you know, and your listeners know, Deacon Christopher Meyer, Deacon Jacob Ramirez, Deacon Luis Garcia, a couple of them are really just big sports aficionados, and you could just tell, Father TJ, had his stamp or his personality, something in him imprinted on these 2 guys or these 3 guys. And so I think they came in under Father TJ, even though the weird thing is that because a couple of them kind of had long-term application processes, for lack of a better word, they were also aware of Father Dat. They interacted with him. So I was just telling Father Dat, when I came to the office, my first year at the end, we had 7 guys ordained. And everybody's congratulating me because you haven't had 7 ordained maybe ever. Or if it happened before, it's been a long time. And I did nothing. That was all Father Dat's work. But it showed up when I was vocation director.
So you took the credit.
Yeah. So, it's hard for me to do that, but I tried. And so when I finally move on to whatever God has for me next, whatever the, Cardinal Donaro, Bishop has for me next, some other guy will start to see what I did, and hopefully it'll be good. And they'll be crediting him man, you had 10 guys ordained. That's great.
They called that one batch the Magnificent 7, right?
Yeah, that's right. They were good men.
That was Father David Michael, Father Ryan's class.
Yeah. Father Rick.
Yeah. Now you got to name them all.
Father Jose Alonso, Father Justin Cormy, Father Vincent Tran, and I think that's it. I don't know, because you named a couple. Oh man, if I miss anybody, I'm sorry.
Now, did you always think
it's
you were
having a lot of kids? You can't forget them. They're gonna remember that.
Oh, that one guy's I knew he didn't like me.
Yeah,
he's not I'm the least favorite of the kids.
Yeah.
Now, did you always want to become a priest?
No. So I was not one of those guys who thought about priesthood was not on my radar at all. until I got to college. I have no idea how it wasn't, but I mean, when I look back, I think, yeah, there were probably things, signs and signals and stuff that was going on in my early life that would indicate that this is what God wanted, but I was oblivious. I was just out to lunch somewhere else. On my own planet.
Did you grow up in a Catholic household?
I did. So my parents my dad was Methodist, and he didn't come into the Catholic Church until I might have been in seminary.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Or just like a few years before, if that. And so, but we were one of those families that went to Catholic church every Sunday. My mom was determined to get us to Mass.
Was she a cradle Catholic?
She was, I guess. Yeah. So she was baptized as a little kid. She's Hispanic. And so I guess it was just part of, the family's faith and culture. And so like we always went to church, but I would not say that our family was like super devout or practicing at the time. I even went to Catholic schools. And
was there a conscious decision of your parents, like, we're going to raise our kids Catholic?
Yeah. Well, I'm an only child.
Okay.
So conscious decisions to make this kid Catholic. And I appreciated that. Like, I know my parents sacrificed to put me through Catholic schools. And I think part of it, it was a little bit like, well, maybe we don't know how to teach our child the faith, but we're going to let these people who do have at it. And I think there's something to that. Like, maybe you don't want to outsource your child's faith education. And there's some things that parents just have to do. But I'm really grateful I went to Catholic schools. I went to St. Vincent de Paul as a little kid for grade school, Strake, for high school. I went to Catholic college. I mean, I just went to Catholic schools like throughout my life.
Was there any discussion about you being raised Methodist?
No, I don't think my dad was very, he wasn't like a devout Methodist.
Okay.
And knowing my grandparents and the kind of faith home he came from, they were sort of Methodist, but with almost like a Unitarian bent. Like I don't think they had a problem with me being raised Catholic. Maybe their only problem was that those Catholics look exclusive, something like that. But otherwise, they were just happy I was Christian and being raised in a Christian home. So.
Now, growing up through, the Catholic schools you went to, you still didn't have any thoughts of becoming a priest, huh?
Yeah, neither from parents or family. I mean, no one in my family is a priest, or from the school. Like, somehow that question about vocation just never got brought up. I think that maybe at certain points in high school, people insinuated, because I did well on a religion test, or because I was involved in the parish in certain ways, that like, hey, maybe, but it would stop at that. It was like, hey, maybe, and then there'd be this dramatic pause and we'd move on.
So there was no hard sell.
No.
Nobody pulled you aside and, hey, have you really thought about, because Father Dad does that at St. Faustina all the time.
Yeah.
You think he's still the vocation director after.
That's great. I am so grateful. Father Dad, thank you for doing our work in your parish. So,
but none of that for you.
No. And, there was a time in my life, I think probably from middle school on, where things just they were probably not like pleasant at certain points in my life. And like, I was being bullied and life at home was really rough. And, like parents and their marriage was kind of like tension. And as an only child, you just pick up all that stuff. There's not a lot of other people to absorb some of this stuff. So I guess like all those things kind of came together, and I really started drifting away from God during those years, which was really a shame.
Was it your high school years mainly?
Middle school and high school. Yeah. Okay. And, it was only back in college when I really started having to make some life decisions for myself. Like, mom and dad aren't there to tell you what to do. Then I think I began to really at least begin to decide to take the faith seriously and make it my own. But otherwise, I think that's part of the problem, is that not only were people not selling the vocation idea to me, or even discernment. But then I was also kind of not listening to God during those times. And, I just kind of noticed that in some ways, my life from the outside probably would have looked pretty good, pretty committed, student at a Catholic school. I am a rule follower. So to a large extent, like my mom's like discipline is still like in my head, I can hear her voice kind of thing.
Was she very traditional while you were growing up?
I think
very strict parent?
She was strict. And at the time it was, a cause, not a cause for rejoicing. I was probably upset and rebellious or whatever. But later on I realized like, I'm really glad that to a certain extent that she did what she did.
It's what you needed.
Yeah, to stay out of trouble. God knows that.
Was there any point where you really got into trouble where things were pretty dicey?
No. I mean, she was always afraid that I was going to like fail out of school. I don't know why that was her fear, but my grades were never bad at all. Sometimes she could tell, like I'm a smart student and I stopped trying. And I think she could just tell like my bad grades or like my mediocre grades were just a result of like zeros because I didn't turn in the work kind of thing. So, there were moments like that. And I think she probably knew I was just like this angry teenager simmering under the surface. But, on the surface, I went to like youth group and things like that.
Okay.
And so, those two things, maybe just no one really kind of pushing the idea of vocational discernment, and then my heart being kind of far from God, and maybe like family life not being the greatest. They just all kind of, it's a toxic stew that I wouldn't have found my vocation at that time, even if God had shouted at me. I
said earlier, you're a handsome guy.
Oh,
what
thanks.
About girls?
Yeah, so I dated in high school. I think part of it was, I'm sure, like somewhere in the back of my mind, forgive me, high school girlfriends, like I was, so much of a typical high school boy, like self-absorbed. I probably tried to listen to my girlfriend, and I really did try to like be a good boyfriend, but I think somewhere in the back is just like, self-absorption. So I just think about all my actions now. Anyway, so
you weren't emotionally mature enough.
No, just so I had a long-term girlfriend in high school. We dated like over 5 years throughout much of high school and then all of college. And I just I was trying to think like somehow you try to put your girlfriend first or do things for her, but I mean, she's also a high school girl, so we're both self-absorbed, but it was, I really, I don't know. Sometimes people ask me, because as a vocation director, you listen to a lot of other people's stories. Like, do you think it's good if people date in high school? And I think, well, it's probably not a one answer fits all kind of situation. But for me, there was probably some good. Like, it definitely helped kick me out of my own little world and like try to love this other person or try to do something. So that like I have to bring her flowers, I have to call her on the phone. And these are not things like guys maybe naturally like. But it was like good training to like, okay, it doesn't matter. I'm not the center of attention right now. Let me just,
Did you guys ever talk marriage? Because you were together for so long.
Yeah, especially in college.
Yeah.
That was kind of the plan in the future. But it was in college that I also began to have like good friends who were Catholic and who started challenging me to live the faith. And I also began to have, like my own, I guess, prayer life began to wake up. And my own stirrings about like, what am I made for? What is going to make me happy? What is life about? The meaning of life. I took philosophy classes in college, and
where'd you go?
I went to St. Louis University. The acronym is SLU. So really, they should change that. Talk about bad marketing.
And what did you take?
I wanted to be a radio, television, film guy.
Okay.
That was going to be my major. And I mean, one, I was trying to get away from home at the time. So I applied to like Florida, New York, Chicago, LA, just like a periphery of of places. But they also had those places, well, maybe not Florida, but they had decent RTF majors. And nothing really either stood out or I didn't get in. And so I went to SLU and I became like an English major. I was going to be like a creative writing. And my dad insisted that if he was going to help me at all with college, I was going to do business.
Okay.
Which I'm grateful because it's true that when I graduated, that was what got me a job, not philosophy. So I ended up taking one philosophy course. They asked these deep questions that I was kind of talking about a second ago.
Uh-huh.
And I fell in love. Like I loved those questions and thinking about like, yeah, what does make me happy? Because I'm not happy now. And I would like to be. And I just, all these questions that I don't know, I never took the time to ask like, what's the meaning of life? Why do I exist? Does God exist? Like these are all just either I'm working from assumptions or I'm just, like ignoring, even the question. And so once I started to ask them, and because I was at a good Catholic school, or at least good enough, I found great answers in the tradition of the church, like St. Thomas Aquinas, Augustine, just like people had been asking those questions for years, hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years.
Is that what led you to the first thoughts of becoming a priest?
Well, it was that actually. It was friends from philosophy class. So I met these like great Catholic guys, and one of them, he's a priest now in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Father Eric Lundgren. He began to ask me in an annoying way, "Hey, why aren't you a priest?" And I was like, I was so taken aback by that question. Like there were so many obvious answers. Like one, I'm not in seminary. I don't want to be a priest. But really I was like, I'm dating somebody. Like the funny thing was, because he would ask that a lot. And I think it was a joke. Maybe that he was trolling me before trolling was a thing. I realized that the right answer is because God doesn't want me to be a priest. And then when I realized that's the right answer, I also realized I never asked God. So I was kind of explaining that, I had maybe in high school and middle school, I was going through the motions, but my heart was kind of far from God. And so just kind of recognizing that like, yeah, I've never actually had that conversation. I came up with what I want to do with my life.
You came up with God's answer.
Yeah. I master planned my life.
Was he a priest already at the time or a seminarian?
No.
When he asked you?
These were just guys who were friends from philosophy class. This guy was discerning.
Okay.
So there were a lot of the group who were discerning. But they had, there was a group of girls that were kind of invested with us. And it was a lot of people who probably were dating at the time.
Okay. Now, how did you go from the point of you thinking that you were going to be, not be a priest, maybe that your vocation was to be a husband and father, to the point of, okay, let me enter the seminary?
So it was definitely a journey. It took me 5 years, even from the point where I think I thought I should look down this road to get to the seminary. Don't take that long. Guys, if you're out there, just talk to your vocation director. Make your life so much easier. It took too long.
So you wrestled with it even before approaching anyone?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I know that most guys, like maybe it's a guy thing to be independent and not need help, but like most of us are kind of like, okay, give me the information, tell me the secret formula, and I'll just run the computations and figure out if I'm supposed to be a priest in the privacy of my own room. And that's just not how discernment works. It's supposed to be done with other people. Like even marriage, I think I was having this great conversation the other day about arranged marriages and thinking that, like 100 years ago, dating was so much easier. And and it's not in a bad way. Like people who knew you better than you knew yourself at 18, called your parents, you know, they kind of had, if they had what's best in mind for you, they would probably be a great person or group of people
to consult.
Yeah, about your future spouse. Like they could probably make some great judgments, knowing your genetics and your dispositions, knowing what's out there, you know, as opposed to like an 18-year-old trying to find his future. Like it's hard. So why do that by yourself? Like kids, come on.
But yeah, there were a couple of times that maybe I should have deferred to my parents in my history. Now, did you break up with the girlfriend during college or after college?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I had a conversion of heart in my college years where I was really, I went to a retreat for the first time on my own with these friends, and we went to a Benedictine monastery, which in St. Louis, I don't know, I expected it to be like ancient and, you know, like it was a pretty new monastery. The guys taught high school, but it was a great place to go. And there was a meditation there. I got a YouTube video about this, so I don't want to go too long. But I basically, like, I was sitting across from Jesus, kind of like we're sitting today, and he was, has his plan, not my master plan, but his plan for my life. And I just knew the girl was not in the box. I don't know, like I was in tears because I was like really distraught because at that point I was trying to live my life for Jesus. I wanted to live my life for Jesus. I knew that he was the meaning of my life, that he was who would make me happy. And like the summum bonum, like everything I wanted was God. And yet here I am telling God, I don't want you, I want this other person. And she's not in the box. So I'm going to go because I don't want your box. And that was really heart-wrenching for me, and really kind of disappointing for me to realize, like, okay, Jesus set everything up. He asked the question, and I walked away.
You didn't like the answer.
Yeah, that's not good. I knew that wasn't good. So I wrestled with it, and I actually came back to Houston. I was out of state, came back for the Triduum, the Good Friday, Holy Saturday, Easter Sunday, and we had a new pastor, and get this, he was preaching divine mercy. So Father John Wire was like the apostle of divine mercy before Father Dat and St. Faustina. And he's like responsible for the chapel down there in St. Lawrence. It's dedicated to divine mercy. And he put a big statue at our church, St. Vincent de Paul. And so he was reading from the diary of St. Faustina for the Stations of the Cross. And I'd never heard of this diary. I'd never heard of that saint. And just something about the grace of that day and that diary spoke to me in a way that nothing ever had. And I was like ugly crying in church in front of my parents. And that was like, to me, that was like the most embarrassing thing. I would have loved to have melted just because of that. But yet I was so happy. Like I knew God loved me. It's almost as if he just said it, Richard, I love you. And clear as day inside, everything like came on, like lights flipped on. And I thought to myself, like, I've never experienced love like this ever. And I've always wanted it. I just never knew. And it's so good. I'll do whatever this is, I'll do whatever it takes. Like, I just want to live my life in that. And, that really set me off. Like I bought the diary. I got every single piece of literature I could get my hands on. I stopped studying for my exams. I just read the diary and like wept for my like wasted life. And I mean, it was great. It was so cathartic. I became a different person. Like I was the kind of guy who probably instigated parties back in the day.
Okay.
They were Catholic parties, but they weren't good parties. I'd be the kind of guy, I just love bringing people together. And so I'd always be like getting my friends. And now I was like the guy who was like, hey, it's 3:00. We got to go pray. And like, like arms out, like on our knees, getting all my friends to like do penance and stuff like that. And they're like, what happened to Richard? Who is this guy?
How did the conversation with the girlfriend go?
Yeah. So I talked to her after that wave of grace entered my life. She was actually studying abroad at the time in China.
Okay.
She's not Chinese. She's studying abroad in China. I remember the conversation. I don't know if what she recalls of it, but I remember that like we both kind of agreed, like marriage really deep down never felt like it was in our future or something like that. She had kind of expressed this vision of like helping children in Africa,
Oh,
and I was like, well, I don't really know what I want to do, but I just feel like I'm supposed to do something like Saint Faustina. Like
uh-huh.
I just felt like whatever that woman's life was, I wanted it. I'd be a nun. You sign me up, like let me enter that Polish convent and just like, that's not for me. But so yeah, that initial conversation was good, and she kind of acquiesced, like, okay, maybe this is not our future.
Uh-huh.
But then she came back to the States, and I was like, forget what I told you. I was
Oh,
still at war in my heart. Like I think I remember praying at some point, like, God, if you want this relationship to end, you got to make it happen. I'm stuck. I
uh-huh.
can't just say goodbye to this person.
Because you were together for so long.
Yeah, and I think, like she and I started dating at a very vulnerable, bad place in my life, and so like she really became like, I mean, it sounds bad, but a god. Like she was my life.
Uh-huh.
We, now we talk about these relationships as toxic, codependent,
Uh-huh.
enmeshed. I learned these words later. But I mean, it wasn't really like healthy. I knew that like um, we're kind of stuck, and we fought, and stuff like that. And I think we both knew like we were not really working. Like,
Uh-huh.
but no one wanted to say goodbye because we had kind of like, that was like a foundation. So,
You didn't know anything else, too.
yeah, I mean, this is like the one person who I thought, like I loved and I had received love from. And then I tasted this thing from God and realized like, no, I don't know what love is, but that was, whatever came from God, I think that's love. And so, yeah, we eventually just kind of, it took a year, but it fell apart. I think once God had come in and intervened like that,
Hmm.
it was only a matter of time before we were both just honest and knew that we just wanted something else.
You
So,
just couldn't make it work. You couldn't
yeah.
force it to happen.
Yeah. And I tried. I mean, I remember driving she went to a different school at the time, like driving to her college and trying to like, I'm sorry, or try to express like, well, I really want to commit, or something like that. But
Hmm.
I think we just both knew that like something had been driven into the relationship that wasn't coming out. And it was light that was revealing like, this is just not for us.
What about her? Did she eventually go to Africa and do that stuff?
You
Do you
know,
know?
we kept in touch kind of loosely for a few years afterwards. And then,
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's been years really. I think I did, she's still someone in the Catholic scene. So occasionally I see her like once every 5 years, like that occasional.
So no Facebook stalking?
No, no, no. I think we're both very happy. She's married and she has 2 kids, I think, maybe 3. I don't know. And that's actually the beautiful thing is that like she too found her eudaimonia, her vocation, and she ended up. I think she went to India with the Missionaries of Charity
Nice.
for a few months. Yeah, to really like live it out. And
That's cool.
I love this about vocational discernment. Sometimes when you have a little bit of idealism in you and you taste the ideal, then you realize it's not for you. The Missionaries of Charity, like if you're thinking about poverty and serving the poor, they definitely stand out as the ideal. But once you try to live it, you realize quickly like this is
Wow.
tough.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, when you go to your parents, how did that conversation go? Telling them that you're discerning the priesthood.
Yeah. As an only child, maybe they had some thoughts and dreams, but because I had already put some distance there by going to school out of state and just
Uh-huh.
kind of, I don't know, kind of running away from the family dynamics a little bit, or that when they learned that I was going to come back home and be a diocesan priest,
Hmm.
I think that made their day a little bit.
Oh, because at least you'll be there in
Yeah.
town.
Yeah. And my dad was pretty pragmatic. And so I had actually like, after college, I'd worked for a year and then I went to grad school for philosophy. And it was there that I kind of fully discerned. I told you it took a long time. And then he probably thought, like, at least my son's going to have a stable career. Like, he's not going to be living in a basement as a philosopher or something like that. Which, in fairness to philosophy professors, you can make it. It's okay. But it's true. There are a lot of PhDs out there who can't get jobs because it's hard.
Have you ever had a conversation with your dad while you were discerning about, hey, who's going to carry on the family name since you're the only child, only son?
I think we have, especially because my grandparents a few years ago, they both died. And it was just kind of like this thought that I wonder if they thought about it, the McNeillie grandparents. And he said he didn't, that wasn't his concern. There's a cousin out there, like a third cousin, who's a McNeillie, but I don't think he's not married yet, and he's kind of around my age. So I don't know. Like, we don't, I guess it's not high on the list. So I'm grateful for that, because that would be kind of an added pressure. But at that point in my life, when I tasted divine love and realized, like, I want to live in this, whatever that means, I was already bought in. Like, okay, family name ends, fine. I just keep going.
So you said you wrestled with it for a few years. What was the tipping point?
Yeah, I don't know what exactly I was wrestling with. I mean, maybe some of it was like, well, I met other women after that, after I'm kind of rebounded, healthy, and staunchly living my faith. And I saw the beauty of Catholic marriage, and I thought, like, this is a person I could spend the rest of my life with. So maybe part of it was that, like, I'm wrestling with, like, well, do I really want to dedicate my life to Christ, or do I want to get married?
Did you date seriously, or
not
just on and
not
off?
again? I know I really kind of lived in a kind of neutral, like, I really wanted to be open to a celibate vocation if it was there.
Okay.
I guess I was just reluctant to pull the trigger to say, like, yeah, it's for me. So I'd kind of, like, I don't know, it sounds bad, but I probably lived my life in a way that kept my options open. Like, maybe I just talked to this nice Catholic woman and we see each other occasionally, but even we're not dating, but
just go out for coffee.
Yeah. I'm just kind of thinking about, this could possibly be the one, but I think I just kind of knew inside that something was different and wanted really a life radically dedicated to God. And that I just couldn't make that go away. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe that was partly that. There were probably other thoughts of, like, where, that's always a big question for discerners, like, where do I go? I looked at Dominicans, I looked at Jesuits, all over. Wow. And I think I needed some healing to look back at Houston, because things hadn't been that good here. And I kind of, I didn't know the Catholic Church when I was 18 and left.
Okay.
I was really kind of in a little bubble. And so it took a little bit of healing to say, you know what, like, let me be open-minded and notice that, wow, a lot of people go to daily mass here, more than I had ever seen in St. Louis, even though I thought, well, St. Louis is like the beautiful church,
Yeah,
like, the Rome of the West, as they like to say. But really kind of falling back in love with my city and recognizing, like, I am rooted here. I want to be rooted here. Why don't I think about diocesan priesthood here? So I think there was a lot of stuff that was stewing for 5 years. It just kind of took a while to settle. And, there's also, I think a lot of guys will say this too, sometimes you feel unworthy. Like, I hadn't lived the best life in high school. I certainly didn't deserve to be a priest. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who remember me from, like, middle school and knew me as a jerk. And I was.
Him?
Yeah.
He became a priest? Yeah. That guy?
The guy who, when bullied, decided to bully other people, so I mean, there was a long thought about, like, why would I do this? Like, why would God call me to this? And just a kind of reckoning with the fact that, yeah, I don't deserve this. That's the point. It's called love. and okay, so God can still work with you even if you don't deserve it. In fact, he likes to work with people who don't deserve it. So all that stuff just took time. It took time for me to kind of acquiesce to losing marriage in a way. And in order to receive the gift of celibacy, it took me a while to kind of really be humble about, like, okay, God, you can actually do this with me. Like, I'm not no one's that broken that can't be used by you. And just other little stuff.
During this time, what did you do? You were working in the private sector, I suppose.
I worked for a year, and I love that. I worked in like the back office of a financial like advisor group. Like they call themselves like family CFOs. And I was the kind of guy who would pray the Liturgy of the Hours on his lunch break. So probably everybody knew like something was up about me, except for me. I was just happily data entering, doing all this menial work and stuff like that. But I think somewhere deep down, like immediately, I just kind of knew like I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. This is pretty empty for me. Other people love this, but I don't. And so I remember there was one day like the Archbishop of St. Louis, Cardinal Burke. He wasn't a cardinal at the time, but he noticed me like always praying in the cathedral, which is kind of my parish. And one day he just invited me to talk, and he didn't really say the thing either. He didn't say like, "Hey, have you ever thought about being a priest?"
No hard sell either.
Yeah, maybe he kind of mentioned it. It was a little bit more than just maybe. He didn't just trail off, but he did say like, priesthood is a good vocation or something. But I didn't pick up on it. I was kind of like, yeah, that sounds nice. Maybe that's for me. I don't know. But I left that job to go to work in another financial group and like write a little document about how to be a Catholic and an investor, which I really kind of liked because I, in college, did philosophy and finance. And so it's a way to marry the two. And then I went on to grad school for 2 years to do finance and philosophy. Well, I take that back. To do applied ethics. So like business ethics.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was in school for 2 years and I worked for a year between college and seminary.
So when you finally finish wrestling with these ideas and you decide to go to the seminary, who was the vocation director that you reached out to?
So it was actually Father Clint at the time. Father Clint Wrestler, who's down there in Texas City. And, it was funny. I tease him now. We know each other pretty well. And like, I remember I was trying to call him, and then he gave me this like long interview form that I was supposed to fill out before we could talk. And it had things like, are you male? Are you over 18? I was like, I could have told him this over the phone, So I was trying to figure out like, hey, take me seriously. I'm not a joke. Like I know I'm from out of state, but like I really think God is calling me to come back home. So he had me do like a little retreat in his parish, which I was really grateful for. And he was the one who kind of told me, like, okay, I understand that you're trying to figure out, is this just a call to holiness that happens in every conversion, or is this a call to priesthood? But he said like, don't take those two as so distinct. For men who are called to priesthood, their call to holiness is their call to priesthood. And I think that kind of gave me the freedom to kind of like punch the ticket and say, you know what, I do feel like I want to be just a saint, but I think there is something more attached to that. And so I started applying down here. And then by the time I became a seminarian, my first year as seminarian was Father Dat's first year as vocation director.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I got the best of Father Dat.
Now, do you think you would have applied earlier to the seminary if you had approached somebody earlier rather than trying to wrestle with it yourself?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think I was really grateful. Well, having said that, maybe the time I took was just the time it took for me. Part of it, I had told, there was an old Monsignor at the cathedral who was my spiritual director. And when I broke up with the girl I was dating for so long, it really I was like a puddle of tears. I was a mess. Even though I knew it was good, I was still
of course
an emotional wreck. And he was like, I was like, yeah, maybe I'm called to be, like this Saint Faustina, like maybe I'll go to religious life or priesthood. And he kind of put the brakes on it. He's like, well, why don't you just get a job first and heal? He kind of recognized like now is not the time to make serious lifelong decisions. Like this is not a rebound vocation, you can't
escape into the cloth.
Yeah. So there was some good to that. And I think even in grad school, when I moved off from St. Louis, it probably took about a year for me to really own up to like apply to seminary. So, it wasn't bad pacing. I realize now, like, there are things, even when I was 12 years old, that if I had been cognizant, and one, if I had just kept praying like I was at the time, instead of rebelling against everybody and God, I might have gone down an early route to be a priest. There was something in my life that was unusual that I don't think I recognized. No one around me seemed to recognize. And then it went away because I hid it for, like 10 years or something like that.
What was seminary like back in those days?
Yeah, I love seminary. But maybe that's why I love being vocation director a little bit, because like I think I am, like, I have tickets to the greatest place on earth. I have tickets, and I'm not talking about the pre-seminarian basketball game. I have tickets to that too. But I really, like, I let some guys, like, 12, 15 guys a year into the greatest place that I wish everybody could go to. I wish we had a seminary for married people, like people engaged.
Oh.
But we can't. We don't have that many resources. And we can only spend it on a few. And so it's like, well, we'll just train the leaders and hopefully they'll be able to be like Father Dad and be awesome parish priests, Father David Michael, like run parishes in the future. Seminary, I did 7 years because I had a degree. And once I got there, within 6 months, I knew this is the place I'm called to be. My life and relationship with God have never been better. Like, I thank you, God, for putting me in seminary, because it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I had been, not just trying to discern on my own, which is not a good idea. I had been trying to like figure out the Christian life on my own. I had read a lot of classical texts, which is good. I did have a spiritual director, but I was really like a self-made man in the spiritual life. Like I was, taking on all these penances and praying all these, different things and different novenas and different times of the day, different ways. And I wasn't getting any holier. I was probably making myself worse, to be honest. And just
Really?
myself. Yeah. And it turned out like in seminary, somebody finally pulled apart that ball of, I don't know, like misfit things or whatever, or yarn, and began to slowly like unknot, things and make it smooth. And I really, like, I traded my beat up Pinto, Ford Pinto, for like a Lexus in seminary. Like my spiritual life was like barely making it. and in seminary, it's like what happened to me in my conversion story, like that night and day distinction, like night and day, like God turned on the lights again. And I mean, I just did things that I don't think, a person could easily do in a life where you're working in the world. Like I went on a 30-day, I went in the Spanish immersion where I really felt like just parts of me grew up in ways that it never did. I went to counseling, which I know it has a stigma. I always try to tell the seminarians, like, hey, you get free counseling. Like you're never going to get this again. Think of it like a coach who can, tell you how to frown when you should frown, or smile when you should smile. Like just an observer who's going to help you work on some habits and behaviors and things like that. I didn't express anger very well. Like at the time, I either had so much that I shut down and then just didn't express it at all, or, we come out passively or things like that. And so like just having like an anger coach, never thought of that before, never would have crossed my mind, never would have paid for it. But in seminary, somebody helped me like express and manage this emotion. And it was like, wow, this is the greatest thing ever.
So you did a lot of work on yourself as a person.
Yeah. The 30-day retreat that I went on, like who could do that, But yet like that, like fundamentally changed my relationship with God in a beautiful way. Just great stuff.
So you didn't discern out and come back. You went the straight 7 years. Once you went in, that was it. You knew it.
Yeah, I knew within 6 months that this is at least the place where God has called me to. There are days, and every seminarian is going to have a day where it's like, I want to quit. This is terrible. Because the cross is in every vocation. And definitely there's no seminary without the cross of Jesus Christ. But even then, like I just knew, like so without a doubt, like, this is what God wants for me. And this is good for me. Like, it's good that I suffer. Thank you, God. I hate this right now. And I'm not saying nice things, but I will be, come resurrection day, probably 3 days from now, I'll probably be fine and whatever. So it's just, I just changed so much that I'm just really grateful.
During your time in the seminary, while you were discerning, working towards your priesthood, did you have to wrestle with, difficulty of the concept of you never getting married, never having children?
I think I had wrestled with that so much prior to entering the seminary. It was not as hard once I got there. Some guys, have the grace to be able to just bring those questions into seminary and wrestle with them there. It's probably healthier because you get more, support. But I, pretty early on just kind of recognized it's true that you do see the grass on the other side. You think it's a really nice woman, and they have a really nice marriage, you see the beauty of marriage and family and things like that. But I think I had already made some kind of fundamental decision that I knew what I wanted. I knew what God wanted for me. It wasn't really much of a question.
Now, in the seminary, we ask a lot of our guests about life in the seminary, what it was like, especially the pranks and the hijinks.
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of experience with that?
Yeah. At some point, I'll have to tell you the prank I pulled on Father David Michael Moses, but that was not in the seminary.
Okay.
I feel like your listeners would enjoy that. But there was, especially at the college seminary. So I went to Holy Trinity in Dallas for 2 years.
Okay.
I was what they used to call a pre-theologian, meaning I had college already.
Okay.
I even had philosophy. I was like a graduate student. I had a master's in philosophy, but I still went there for 2 years before going to study at St. Mary's, the theology seminary, to get some other stuff out of the way.
Theology courses mainly, I suppose?
I did. I actually took, and I'm grateful for this. I got to take graduate theology with some of the Cistercian monks there who were renowned, which is great.
Wow.
Yeah. So in Holy Trinity Seminary, there were pranks. And, it's funny because now these guys, I wasn't really involved that much in the pranks. I probably did enough weird stuff that people were like, we don't know how to even prank him. I used to try to bake bread and I would try to make sourdough. So I'd leave water and wheat out, trying to catch ambient yeast. And the place at the time, I think they've cleaned it, but the vents were so dirty. I don't know what ambient yeast was growing, but it was green and yellow and
gosh.
red. But they were people would throw my stuff out because they're why are you leaving rotting, flour out? It looked gross to them. But anyway, I remember there was a little exchange, there was a priest who's now a rector or pastor somewhere that used to bring a cat, a big inflatable cat, the kind you'd put out in your yard for Halloween.
Okay.
And he'd put it in people's rooms.
It would just show up randomly.
Yeah. But then there was this, I wasn't really privy to it, but there was another guy who's now a priest who was he really got into it with the kitchen staff. So back then we used to have not a corporate company who came in and did dining, but there used to be mom and pop, we'd hire somebody for life to be our kitchen cook or something like that. And so her and her wait staff, I guess they used to trade pranks. And so somehow they started moving a fish, a dead fish around into people's rooms.
Oh no.
It would just show up randomly and you'd be like, what's that?
That smell, yeah.
Yeah. And you couldn't find it, so they would hide it. And maybe it'd be under your bed or whatever, and you'd have to figure out where it was because otherwise your room would stink.
Yeah, dead fish.
I think it got to the point where one of the guys decided to give them flowers, but he blended the dead fish and he put it in the water. So he had like fish sauce and flowers.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
So instead of just dead fish. It's blended dead fish in a flower vase.
Yeah, I think at that point they decided to stop because it was starting to get out of hand.
Oh.
It's like, well, we don't know how to top this, but it's going to be worse and gross, so let's just not go there.
What about you? Were you a victim or a mastermind?
You know, I never really got too involved in the pranks. I'm not really sure why. They probably, I don't know. Maybe they thought like we don't want to make Father Richard cry or whatever. So, but so I really enjoyed, watching other people prank, and maybe I picked up on this because so I'll just tell you the Father David Michael story. I used to be when he was in his pastoral year, his internship year, I was his parish priest, a parochial vicar at St. Martha's in Kingwood. And one day, so Father David Michael. His two first names, sorry. If you knew him, you know that he can be kind of innocent. And I don't think he's naive, but something about him is just like, he's suggestible sometimes. And so like we wanted to exploit this wonderful trait about Father David Michael. And so we told him like, hey, there's a person who died and all their family is in Nicaragua. And we really need you to do like some kind of liturgy, like just say these prayers for the dead over this body, and we'll videotape it and send it to the family. And we knew the guy who had owned the funeral home, who we worked with a lot. So he lent us a coffin, and we got a couple of the parish youth. With their parents' consent. I actually called their parents first, and they're like, make sure that coffin doesn't seal airtight. Anyway, so they hid in this coffin. Boy. And we actually have a video. Somebody needs to surface this video, and it needs to go on YouTube.
Yes.
But we have a video of him as he's praying, and the coffin begins to open, and he looks at the camera, and his eyes get really big, like, are you seeing this? Am I resurrecting this person from the dead? Like, I don't know what's going through his mind.
The whole Lazarus experience, right?
He must have incredible thoughts of like, am I seeing a miracle? What is going on? Because they did a great job. They opened it so slowly, and I guess they had like a white sheet on, so you couldn't exactly tell who it was immediately.
Gosh.
And so I think for a second, he really thought like this dead person is opening this coffin, and we have it on video, and I don't know where this is. We need to get it.
Like in his mind, he's like, okay, we got to get the Vatican to come and investigate this thing because this is
a miracle.
So you're the mastermind behind that.
Yeah. Did he tell that?
I can't remember if he said it in one of his homilies. I think it was one of his homilies.
Yeah. It was the best prank I've ever pulled on somebody. I loved it because he was the best person to pull it on. Like,
so you were the original pranker of Father David Michael, not the Katie Young adults.
I'll take that. I'll take that from those Katie Young adults. That's right, Katie Young adults. I started this,
Because they have pulled some pretty great pranks. I mean, we spoke with Danielle and Caroline before about it, and of course Father David Michael about the stuff that's happened, but you're the original.
Yeah, I don't want to get in a prank war with them, so don't stay away from my car, please.
That was during his pastoral year.
Yeah.
What about your pastoral year? Where did you go?
I went to St. Francis de Sales. I loved it. It was just a great parish. Not a lot of people know about that parish for whatever reason. I was born actually down the road in the Sharpstown Hospital there, Memorial Hermann. And so I kind of looked at that parish as like part of home, even though I was baptized at Holy Ghost, which is the other Sharpstown parish. But I had a great time. I was there with, just a great set of people.
What year was that? Do you remember?
Gosh, 2011 maybe? I think 2011 or 2012 or between those 2 years.
During your time in the seminary, did a lot of guys discern out?
Yeah. I remember I arrived there in Dallas to Holy Trinity, and there was some guy. He was a seminarian of Dallas, and he didn't make it the day. He quit.
Really, the first day?
It was so bad. He was a lawyer, and so it was clear. Somebody said that we think he still has open cases that he has to kind of go back and forth on.
Okay,
but he was looking around and looking at us. kind of like, what is this group of clowns that I'm part of? And we were just kind of, we were younger. He was a little older. He was probably around 40 or whatever. But man, that guy, he like went to go get something from his car and then he never came back.
It's like, I'm not spending 2 years with these characters here.
Yeah.
Did he ever go back? Do you know what happened?
No, he just disappeared. I don't know. We asked the vocation director about him, the one from Dallas, and
maybe he wanted something a little more serious. Maybe he wanted a monastic lifestyle, or
I don't know. Sometimes I think, it's true that when you get in the seminary, it's a place of discernment. Hopefully you've done enough discernment beforehand that it doesn't take you 6 hours to realize this is not for you. But I guess the guy realized it's not for
I wonder what was going through his head.
I would have loved to know.
Like, they pray every day? Oh, no, we're not doing it.
I don't know. But there were other guys. We used to make fun. There was we went to college seminary. So we were a little older. Like I was 26 at the time. And I mean, we were there with 18-year-olds, who like are learning how to wake up on time and stuff like that. And we just loved like teasing them. There was one guy who like somehow he managed to make the university paper at a dance, like it's a picture of him embracing this young woman, like in a kind of swing move. So he's kind of like bowing her down, or like, I don't remember what you call that. But it's sort of like bowing her.
Giving her like a dip or something.
Yeah, dipping.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Clearly haven't danced in a long time. I can't remember the vocabulary. So he was doing that in the front page. And I mean, of course, like unmercifully, we're all going to refer to that as his girlfriend and ask him all these questions, like who is she or whatever. But his buddy was the editor-in-chief of the paper. So somehow, I don't know what he had done, but he managed to like alienate himself from his own friends. So they published this, or maybe they were just trying to say like, hey, dude, just be honest. Like the seminary is not for you. But he used to show up late to everything, get in trouble, and then that thing came out. And it was kind of like the writing was on the wall. He left by Christmas. So.
Was it hard on you if, like your friends, seeing your friends discern out?
I think it was a little hard. There was one guy who we all loved. And there's always like one guy who you think like, that guy should be a priest. Like, I don't know about me, but that guy should be a priest. And then he leaves.
Wow.
And you're like, well, if he's not called, like, what am I? Like,
you start doubting yourself.
Yeah,
big time.
a little, or like, like just wondering like why, if that guy was so good, like what, so you never know. Like sometimes seminary begins to feel like there's this, in the book of Judges, these stories about Gideon, and Gideon is told to take an army, I think to Jericho and, like take it over. And God ends up like saying some really random stuff like, okay, you don't need a big army. In fact, your army's too big. And he doesn't have that many. He just, like he goes down to like 300 men, I think. But he says something like, okay, the people who drank out of the stream with their hands as opposed to like lapping it up like a dog or whatever, like kick them out. I was like, oh, okay. They didn't do anything wrong. Like they're still good, But so sometimes it feels a little bit like that, like arbitrary. Like why does this guy go? Why does that guy doesn't? Yeah, the will of God is sometimes a mystery to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like after your pastoral year, everything's just steamrolling towards priesthood, huh?
Well, actually, I got a concussion. All the guys, they'll remember this because they used to make fun of me for it. But I'm not the injury. I think that kind of scared some people. We were playing flag football.
Okay.
We play against other seminaries. And so we were practicing for this like meet between us and probably Assumption Seminary in San Antonio. And we were running a standard play, first day of practice. I'm not going to be on the team. Like, I don't care to play this game.
Okay.
I'm not very big, I'm just not that big of a guy. So I'm not going to play football, but I'll run. I'm a fast runner. And so I was just like running drills, helping them like practice defense. And so I was the guy who was supposed to like go after the quarterback's flags after like, 5-1,000 or whatever. And I ran in and I didn't even see this other guy who was also running in, and the quarterback was between us and he moved in pocket.
Oh.
And so I just, like that hit in the basketball game, I collided with some big dude, like soon to be Deacon Luke Prohoda, like a big dude, and my head hit his shoulder blade or like this part of his body.
Okay.
and I passed out. Like I went down, and I was having like some kind of seizure on the ground, and they thought I was dead.
Wow.
And then I got up, and I was like pretty out of it. And so they took me to the hospital, and they said like, oh, this is back in the early days of like those CTE scandals,
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
and like learning that, oh, maybe concussions are a little more hard on the brain than we thought. But the place where I went, like the ER was like, don't play sports for 2 days and then you're good. And I was like, oh, okay. You know, they stitched me up. And then like in 2 days, I was emceeing a mass for the installation of a pastor, which involves a bishop. So it's a big mass.
Okay.
And I went to a Dynamos game. And like, these are not things that you really want to do when you have a concussion that's serious. Like you want to be like, you know, a little bit like less on the lights, and the sound, like sensory deprivation is good. And so by the end of it that day, like I was feeling dizzy, I had a headache.
Oh, wow.
Like I couldn't think straight. Like I had brain fog real bad.
Wow.
And I didn't come out of that kind of state for a couple months. Like it was just like, man, I feel like I lost.
So is this the reason why we have a priest versus seminarian basketball game and not a football game?
Probably. Honestly, like it's. I think word on the street was that some of the higher ups saw the basketball game in its early days and said, like, I can't watch this. Like these people are like gonna get killed.
It does get intense.
I can't imagine our higher ups watching like a football game between priests. They would probably not like that at all. Like the insurance and liability lawyers are probably like, yeah.
For 2 months, you were in a brain fog. Did that get in the way of your studies?
Well, it was tough. For a while, I was really considering like, I wonder if I should take a medical leave and just go home. Like it's hard to be in communal living with like 80 other guys and have sensory deprivation. So I would try to sleep. I slept for like 16 hours a day for almost a month. And it was really hard because I live on a hall. Like I have a 1-room, bedroom. That's it. That's my room. And the door's pretty thin. And so like, guys would come back from class and they'd shout and they'd, talk
be rowdy and all that. Yeah.
And I'd be trying to sleep.
Wow.
So it's just it was tough because, they couldn't change their behavior that easily.
Yeah, of course.
And I couldn't change mine. It was just kind of like every day I just dragging.
Did you have MRI scans done and CT
eventually,
scan of anything?
No, not so much. I think they did take one of my brain eventually because I had headaches for 6 years after that.
Oh, wow.
Which sounds pretty bad. I guess I got used to it. But they ended up, like, a lot of my problems, it's going to be like a medical forensic file here, I think were caused by some muscle injuries that were, like, ruining my neck. So I just had, like, neck injuries, shoulder injuries. I had more injuries than I think I knew.
Wow.
Because I was only paying attention to my head. And so it just took a while for all that stuff to get sorted out and healed. But I'm back. I am normal. I think my brain works okay.
Maybe that's why you weren't pranked in the seminary. They're like, yeah, we feel bad for this guy.
Yeah, I feel sad for Richard. Yeah, that's right. I like that.
Where did you spend your diaconate here?
I went to St. Pius V. I love that parish. It's in Pasadena. Not many people know about it. It's got a lot of history. It's actually a pretty old parish. That neighborhood is actually kind of older than people realize. But I had to speak a lot of Spanish. We used to joke that, the parish jokes of itself, that basically that area of the city is puro Mexicano, puro Tamaulipas or Nuevo León, which is 2 states that are on the border of really Texas, but Mexico and U.S. And it's basically like people only from this one state in Mexico. Mexico's got a lot of states.
Okay.
So it's like a bubble. You could go there and you feel like you're in Monterrey or some other, part of that area.
Are you fluent in Spanish?
So I was listening to Deacon Jacob Ramirez's interview, and he was very emphatic that he, between like all the little grades of fluency, I think I am. No one ever feels secure and like confident in another language. You always know, like, I make mistakes and that was supposed to be masculine and I said la, but I probably do a pretty good job. I can preach extemporaneously and get understood. So I feel like that's success. And one-on-one, I think they would probably call me fluent.
Did you grow up speaking Spanish since you're...
Yeah, no. So just part of probably my rebelliousness started early. Like my mom, I like to refer to her as Texican.
Okay.
Or Tejano.
Tejano, yeah. Okay.
Chicana or something like that. Because, I mean, her family, her parents are from Texas. It's possible that her grandparents, one of them wasn't. But like we think that part of the family came here to found the little town of Victoria, the city of Victoria.
Uh-huh.
So they've been here a long time. She did grow up Spanish speaking.
Uh-huh.
That was her first language.
Or maybe a part of your family's from a part of Texas that was part of Mexico.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for real.
It just changed.
That's the joke, right? Like we never crossed the border crossed us. I think that's definitely part of the family history. But so she did speak Spanish, but she was never educated in it. I think she had to get it later on, like in college or something like that.
Okay.
Because back then, they didn't educate little kids in their native language. They refused. They wanted them all to speak English. And I think they used to beat them, like hit them with rulers if they spoke Spanish in school. So she only spoke it at home. She tried to speak it to me. And I think I had a babysitter for a year who was Mexican and spoke, I don't think she spoke English. So I know I heard it a lot, but I refused to speak back. I was like, no, I will not speak back to you in Spanish. So my dad is not a Spanish speaker at all. So I guess it kind of, the household, we just spoke English. But I regret it because it would have been so easy if I would have learned as a little kid. So.
I know. My grandma lived with us when I was growing up, and it didn't stick with me either. It wasn't until Filipino,
Do you speak Tagalog?
Yes, but I only learned it later on because after my dad retired, we moved to the Philippines, and you get immersed. That's when you really learn.
Oh, but that's probably painful because when you're an adult and it's hard to learn.
Yeah. It was harder. It was harder. It was in my later teens that I was in the Philippines.
Not as painful.
Not as, but it was still difficult. I like you, I kind of resisted for a while until finally I picked it up. Yeah, but now you can do... You're pretty fluent, huh?
Yeah, and now we're those adults who are telling those kids, like, hey, kid, learn it while you're young. It's so much easier.
After your diaconate year, so it's one more year, you become a priest. Do you remember anything about your ordination? Anything specific about the day itself?
There are very few details that I really have impressed on my memory. I wish I remembered more, but I imagine just like, somebody's wedding day, it's just kind of a blur. Like I remember how I felt when I went to bed that night because I was crazy. I did a mass of Thanksgiving that very same day.
Wow.
And I had a reception after that. And so like I was on my feet from...
It was boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, 7 a.m. to like 10, which now is actually kind of like normal, unfortunately. Like that's the life of a priest. But I wasn't ready for that. My feet hurt so much at the end of the day because I never sat down.
You're shaking everybody's hands, taking pictures and all that. People asking for first blessings.
Yeah. Oh, the lines never went down. I was always like, are they done yet? How many people in line? And people would be like, oh, it's the same, So I guess I just want to get used to those things too. But I remember taking a breath before entering the cathedral, like entering the procession, the liturgical procession. So there's a second where the MC makes you kind of wait at the door because they're waiting for the rest of the procession to kind of finish on. They want to space things out, right?
Of course.
And I remember like getting choked up because as I took that breath, like something, like I recognized the gravity of the moment. Like I have been waiting for this. God has been waiting for this. At least people are waiting for this. And it just brought everything to like completion. Like it was like, thank you, God. Yes. So that was one moment. Everybody kind of remembers lying on the floor. I kind of do. For some reason, I remember this detail that like I had a cut on my hand. I don't know how it got there. But I noticed it when the cardinal was anointing my hand, like blood was in the chrism. And it was like,
oh, wow.
I think he even saw that and he was kind of wondering, where's that coming from?
It's like, does this guy have stigmata or something?
No. It was the cut. So, but it was kind of funny. For whatever reason, that detail like stands out.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of, so It was not a lot of blood. I was not like profusely bleeding.
Yeah, I know. I was just joking.
Yeah.
Now your first assignment, where was that?
That was St. Martha's.
Okay.
And I was there for 3 years, and I loved it. I mean, I love those people. I still do. Just a great parish, great pastor, great parochial vicars. I think a lot of guys, they worry about their first assignments a lot, and they worry about like what the rectory life is going to be like. And I had it nice. I mean, one, it was a nice rectory. Two, it was just like great people. We really felt like a family.
Did you say that was Monsignor Borski?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He was a good mentor. He really makes time for the other priests in the house. And so we would always, actually, I was the one who probably resisted a little bit because we would eat lunch and dinner together basically every day. And at some point I was like, I kind of have some other things to, do. I can't do this every day. But I'm really grateful for his championing, fraternal life amongst priests. Like he really made it a priority.
Like fostering this brotherhood.
Yeah, that's really needs to come from a leader, because it's hard to get guys to all make the sacrifice and make time, because we all have different and busy schedules.
Yes, very busy schedules as priests.
But because he was the pastor, he kind of made it known that like, hey, let's make time for each other. And so we did. It was
Did
great.
any of the seminarians that were, on their pastoral year or their diaconate year, who went through St. Martha while you were there? Were there any that went through there?
Father David Michael. There's a guy from Fort Worth who probably people won't know, but Nia, Father Nia Nguyen, I think is his last name. I can't say the NG in Vietnamese, so I hope I did a good job.
Close enough.
Yeah, that's right. And then that was it. But Father David Michael took a year. He was there the whole year. And it was almost like getting a baby brother. Like I knew about 9 months ahead of time. I didn't know it was him, but I knew we were getting a seminarian. Family was getting a seminarian. We prepared his room, put out his crib, and, we got to decorate and things like that. No, it wasn't, but it just felt like, yeah, we're expecting another, It was pretty cool.
So he was the only
I think
one
he
of
was
the pastoral
only
year.
one. Gosh, if I'm forgetting somebody, that's bad, right? But no, I'm pretty sure he was it. Because the next year, Father Borski was beginning to taper down and get ready to retire. So I guess they didn't give him another guy.
And then after that, that's when you received your current assignment.
Yeah, it was kind of a surprise. I thought for some reason, because the other parochial vicar had left, and we knew Father Borski was leaving, that they weren't going to take all the priests at the same time.
You thought you were assured of your spot, at least for a while, for some kind of stability.
One more year, yeah. And so when this came out, like I was shocked. I was actually on a retreat, and God in that retreat had kind of been preparing me for something new. I had met, I guess there are these, it's like a nun and a priest who do like priest healing ministry. They're kind of famous in the charismatic world. I think it was Father Scanlon and Sister Briege McKenna. And they happened to be at this retreat center, and they said some kind of prayer with me, and somebody said like, hey, I see you leading men in like a group of men into the church to the Eucharist. And at the time I was thinking like there's this famous thing at Sacré-Cœur, I can't say that word in French, Sacred Heart in Paris, that like they have adoration all the time, and they, do like flash mobs on the street, and then they get all these tourists to go inside and like, hey, take a candle, just go inside. And they like find themselves in adoration. I thought it was like that, but no, like this guy had a vision of like, I am going to be a vocation director. And so when I got off this retreat, I checked my voicemail and I see I have a call from the Cardinal Secretary, and he's like, hey, Richard, I just want you to call me back. And I just knew, like, there's only two things this could be. Because if it's discipline or any other reassignment, somebody else calls you.
Okay.
He doesn't call you. So the only thing he could call you about is, I'm going to be his next secretary, or I'm going to be the vocation director.
Oh.
And even then I was like, I'm going to be the secretary, because there's no way he would make me vocation director. And then I was just in denial. I don't know. Yeah. Like by the time I flew back home, I kind of like accepted the reality that like, I'm going to be the vocation director. So I went into that meeting, and sure enough, he asked me, can you do this?
So when he asks you that, is he pretty much telling you, or
Yeah. I think, I mean,
you can't say no, right?
I think he's a little open to the feedback that, like, if I said like no, and walked off, like he's not going to want me doing it either.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course.
I mean, by that point, he doesn't know what to do with me. But no. So yeah, it's pretty much like I would like you to do this.
After spending time in a big parish like St. Martha,
Mm.
and looking at, okay, I'm going to be a priest without a parish, did that kind of, depress you, or kind of make you feel sad that, I'm not going to be able to have these families that I'm going to work with?
Yeah. I mean, I knew it was coming, right? Like everybody at St. Faustina, y'all know that you can't keep Father David Michael forever.
So, I think people are, they're kind of accepting it.
But there's always a little bit of, you save the hurt till it happens.
Yes.
And it hurt. I think I remember once talking to a pastor who, he told us it never gets easier. Every time you leave a parish, it hurts even more. And he just remembered like well into like his third assignment, just grieving one day. He didn't even know why he was crying. And then like finally it's starting to come out, like just all those people he missed. So I, unfortunately I don't know that I grieved as well as I wanted to, because there was so much going on. Father Borski was retiring too. And so I didn't really even get to say goodbye in the way that maybe it would have felt appropriate, because there was already so much goodbye going on. It just became kind of like a bonus goodbye. Like you get to say goodbye to Father Borski, and and I think people were exhausted with goodbyes, and so that was kind of sad. And then as soon as I got into my new job, like there's no book that they give you to figure out how to be a vocation director.
No guide, no nothing.
I got 8 hours with Father TJ, who's also trying to prepare for like, he's going to be the pastor of this huge parish.
Yeah.
And so it was like ships crossing in the night. It was just sad. And so I just felt like overwhelmed. And so I probably just, tried my best to swim and not to sink. And so, yeah, it hurt. But I guess because I was so busy, I don't know that I fully grasped. Like it took like probably years for me to recognize like, man, it really is sad, losing all these people.
Because you walk with them through their lives.
Yeah. And you tell yourself like, I'll be back, I'll come back from time to time. But the reality is no, like one, that's not, I guess, respectful of the mission that I have. Like I have to kind of keep focused. I can't just go back to Kingwood every weekend. And two, like there are other priests there. Like Father Jonathan kind of replaced me, Murray, who's now a pastor in Sealy. And I wanted to be fair to him. Like, I don't want to be that guy who, like people are still friends with you, so they don't become friends with a new guy.
Yeah. You don't want to step on his toes and make people miss you and or something like that. Wow. Now going into becoming vocation director, did you get any advice from Father Dat as well?
I did. I still get advice from Father Dat. No, I'm grateful for all of it. He really is. I tell him this. He posted the greatest numbers of all time.
Really?
16 is, I think, the biggest entering class we've ever had for seminarians. And 16 is his number. So he had a couple years where he had really big numbers, like 14, 16, 13. And it was every other year was kind of a little less than that. But
wow.
So, I get to learn from the GOAT, Father Dat. I'm really grateful for his mentoring there.
He's got the CompuBox numbers to stand behind.
Yeah,
wow.
He's got stats. Yeah.
But now when you went into becoming the vocation director, are there any guys coming up soon that you can say, hey, these are my guys?
Just back to that lag, that long-term process. So you won't see them till probably I'm gone from the office. Because
really?
The average tenure of a seminarian is 7 years, and the average tenure of a vocation director is 6. So but I think the first person that people will see that's kind of like, Envo, and actually St. Faustina will see Envo because he's going there, next year in his 3rd year, and then he'll go there, God willing, as a deacon
Oh,
in his
wow.
4th year. Yeah, to St. Faustina. That's the plan anyway. I don't know. We make plans. We'll see what happens.
We'll see. Yeah.
But Unvo would be the first, and then after that, you would begin to start seeing men who, I mean, I guess like John Clark and Haidao and Carlos Valero. These people were kind of, Hai and John were the class that when they entered, it was my first year.
Okay.
But I hadn't been there for their application process or any of the part of the discernment.
So part of you and part of that overlap period.
Yeah, I have to acknowledge Father TJ did all the work for those guys. So yeah.
Now, looking at your time as the vocation director, and you still got maybe a couple of years left, have you thought about where they might send you?
Yeah, I think about it. I can't say it doesn't cross my mind. Sometimes there are days when I think about the parish, and it's kind of like those images of like green fields and beautiful sheep and all that, just kind of like, wow, what a peaceful, like I'm sure it's hard at a parish too, but I miss the parish and one day, God willing, I'd go back. But I don't know. Like there are so many unknowns right now that I don't really know what God or, my bishop has in mind for me right now because, we've got a new priestly formation program. And so that's it needs to be implemented. That's kind of big on the horizon. That changes a lot of the way seminary works. We've, there are a lot of pastors who are retiring in the next few years. And I guess there's just kind of like, we're wondering like what's next on the horizon in terms of church leadership, in terms of the church, in terms of this PPF. And so I don't really know what is going to be expected of me or what God has planned. It's kind of like after COVID, I've just acquiesced that I can't plan that well because I really don't know. Like there are some curveballs out there that I don't see coming.
Is there any possibility that after this year's round of ordination that you might actually be replaced?
I don't think so. I think I would see that one coming down the pike just because it's like 1 month away. I hope somebody would tell me, I at least start preparing. But I mean, every year after this, I think it's kind of like year to year.
Okay.
And I just don't know. So,
who would you think would replace you?
Yeah, I've told people like you could be my replacement, which is kind of cool because I see everybody who might replace me.
Oh.
I've been their boss at some point.
Yeah.
So I get to train.
Who's on that list?
Well, I think that, you're looking not at a large list. So anybody in that class that just got ordained this last year is going to be 2 years in a parish by the time, maybe my 6 years come up. So they could be a possibility or, those four, I'm including Father Joseph White, who went back to Rome, but Father Chad, Father Wayne, and Father Houston.
Yeah.
And then, people have talked about Father David Michael.
Yes, I've heard that rumor, that chat about him.
If he doesn't become a pastor, I guess he's also, on the possible list. Basically, I think you're looking, I don't know, the Cardinal is going to pick whoever he wants. But generally speaking, if you look at the history of the picks, they tend to be not pastors because you don't usually remove a pastor to do some of this stuff. But you could. And it's typically, somebody who's a parochial vicar and one of the younger guys. They usually pick younger guys. So I don't know.
Does it take a lot more energy? Is that why?
I think so. And there's a bit, you're working with youth and young adults. And so maybe they want somebody who relates, I guess, because they're from similar generations or they're from that same culture. I guess I'm a millennial. And so, if you're going to find other millennials, you need to.
So is that why you think Father David Michael's name gets thrown out there a lot? Because he's quite young.
Yeah.
Father Joseph as well. He's the youngest right now.
Yeah.
Point, right? Yeah.
And I mean, these are all great priests. So, they can carry this responsibility and things like that. I don't know. It's kind of to a Catholic in Galveston-Houston, it's going to sound like a wide net. But when you think about it, there are only like 10 guys who have been ordained in the last 3 or 4 years who could possibly be in this boat. So it's not a big pool.
Yeah, and it also has to do with timing and all of that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is you're not going to get a guy who's 1 year out of the parish, and you're not going to get a guy usually who's just 1 year in a parish. So you're looking for a man who's kind of like ready, like a ripe fruit to be picked and put into this box. And I don't know. We'll find out. Suspense.
Well, we thank you so much for, telling your story here on the show. And who knows, maybe the next time we have you, you'll have a parish.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be pretty cool. Yeah. And we'll have to talk about more pranks. I have to come up with something good.
Make a whole list, right?
Yeah. We'll just have to start executing some things right now.
Are you going to become that priest, that parish priest that starts pranking people?
No, I don't think so. But I would enjoy a good prank now and then. So not on me, of course. Yeah.
Oh, you don't want to be like Father David Michael that gets pranked every year?
No, who wants to be like that? Only I tell you, if Father David Michael, he is unique in his ability to be good about being pranked. So,
if anyone wants to, or is thinking about any type of vocation, to, any type of religious life, how can they get into contact with you?
Yeah, thanks. HoustonVocations.com, or follow us on Instagram, Houston Vocations. We have a YouTube channel. We have a Facebook. We're out there. You could even just Google Houston Vocations, or I think if you Google, I want to be a priest in Houston, we should come up. All of our contact information are on those digital media and that website. And we'd love to get in touch.
And then they'd get in contact directly by you or Joelma.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes other office staff may send an initial email, but if you're looking to talk to me about vocation work or about your vocation, discernment, any of that stuff, priesthood, I'm available. That's my job.
One last thing. Any piece of advice to somebody who, like you, was kind of wrestling with the idea back then you were, and is on the cusp of calling or contacting the vocation office, but is not there yet, what advice would you have for them?
Surrender to God, and He will do everything for you.
Thank you so much, Father Richard.
Mel, my pleasure. It's been great to be on your show. Thank you.
We'll see you again soon.
I hope so, Rudy.